Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're stepping back in time, not to the grand courts of kings or the muddy battlefields of knights, but to the bustling, noisy, and incredibly organized heart of the medieval city, the world of the guilds. The Middle Ages might conjure images of castles and cathedrals, but the real economic and social engine of the later medieval period was this intricate network of craftsmen and merchants. So what exactly was a guild? Imagine a combination of a trade union, a business school, a quality control agency, and a social club, all rolled into one. Guilds were associations of artisans or merchants who controlled the practice of their craft in a particular town. If you wanted to be a baker, a weaver, a blacksmith, or even a candle maker in a medieval city, you almost certainly had to be part of a guild. They were the gatekeepers of professional life. Let's break down how this system worked, starting from the very beginning of a craftsman's journey. It all began with the apprentice. A young boy, often as young as 10 or 12, would be sent by his family to live with a master craftsman. This wasn't just a job, it was a complete way of life. The apprentice would live in the master's home, eat at his table, and work in his shop. In exchange for his labor, he received food, lodging, and most importantly, training in the mysteries of the craft. The term of apprenticeship was long, typically 7 years. During this time, the apprentice learned everything from sourcing raw materials to mastering the most intricate techniques of his trade. It was a period of hard work and strict discipline, but it was the essential first step on the ladder to success. After successfully completing his apprenticeship, our young craftsman didn't immediately become a master. The next stage was to become a journeyman. The name says it all. He was now free to journey from town to town, working for different masters for a daily wage. This period was crucial. It allowed the journeyman to broaden his experience, learn regional techniques, and save up money. It was also a test of his skills and his character. He was no longer a boy under the strict supervision of a single master. He was a professional earning his own way in the world. The final and most difficult step was to become a master craftsman. This was the ultimate goal. To achieve this, a journeyman had to prove his skill to the leaders of the guild. The pinnacle of this process was the creation of a masterpiece. This wasn't just a figure of speech. It was a literal piece of work, a product so fine and complex that it demonstrated his complete mastery of the craft. For a goldsmith, it might be an ornate chalice. For a cabinet maker, a beautifully carved chest. If the guild masters approved the masterpiece, and if the journeyman had enough capital to open his own shop, he would finally be admitted to the guild as a master. He could then take on his own apprentices, hire journeymen, and hang his shingle as a respected member of the city's business community. But guilds were about much more than just career progression. They were fundamental to the medieval economy. One of their primary functions was to control quality. In an age before mass production and brand names, the guild's stamp of approval was a guarantee of a well-made product. Guilds set strict standards for raw materials, production techniques, and even the final price of goods. This protected consumers from shoddy workmanship and ensured a fair market for everyone. If a member was found to be cheating customers or producing substandard goods, he could be fined, publicly shamed, or even expelled from the guild, which was essentially professional ruin. They also controlled competition. Guilds regulated who could practice a trade, how many apprentices a master could have, and even working hours. This might sound restrictive to our modern ears, but it was designed to prevent a single master from becoming too powerful, and to ensure that there was enough work to go around for all guild members. They effectively created a protected market, shielding their members from outside competition and maintaining a stable economic environment within the city walls. Beyond the workshop, guilds formed the very fabric of social life. They were brotherhoods. Members were expected to support each other in times of need. The guild would provide for the widows and orphans of deceased members. They would care for members who fell ill or became unable to work. This was a vital social safety net in an era with no government welfare. Guilds also played a big part in the religious and civic life of the city. They would have their own patron saint, their own chapel, and would march together in religious processions and city festivals, carrying their elaborate banners and symbols. They organized feasts, celebrations, and even theatrical performances. Being part of a guild meant you were part of a community that looked after you from cradle to grave. There were two main types of guilds: merchant guilds and craft guilds. Merchant guilds were typically the first to appear and were often the most powerful. They were associations of long-distance traders who controlled the flow of goods into and out of a city. They dealt in luxury items like silks, spices, and wines, and their wealth gave them enormous political influence. In many cities, the leading members of the merchant guilds were also the leaders of the city council, effectively running the town. Craft guilds, on the other hand, were for the artisans who actually made things. We're talking about weavers, dyers, stonemasons, carpenters, bakers, brewers, you name it. As cities grew, the number and specialization of craft guilds exploded. You might find separate guilds for cobblers who made new shoes and cordwainers who repaired old ones, or different guilds for those who worked with wool versus those who worked with linen. This specialization reflected the growing complexity and sophistication of the urban economy. Of course, the world of the guilds wasn't a perfect utopia. The system could be incredibly rigid and resistant to change. The focus on protecting members' livelihoods sometimes stifled innovation. Why invent a faster way to weave cloth if it meant some weavers would lose their jobs? The path to becoming a master could also be blocked by more than just a lack of skill. Often, guilds became hereditary, with masters favoring their own sons or sons-in-law, making it nearly impossible for an outsider journeyman, no matter how talented, to ever open his own shop. This created a permanent class of wage-earning journeymen, with little hope of advancement, leading to tension and sometimes even violent strikes. And the guilds were exclusively male domains, while women, particularly widows, might be allowed to carry on their husband's trade for a time. They could not become masters in their own right or participate in the governance of the guild. So, what happened to the guilds? As the Middle Ages gave way to the early modern period, new economic forces began to challenge their dominance. The rise of capitalism, with its emphasis on competition and individual enterprise, ran directly counter to the guild's collective, regulated model. Entrepreneurs began to move production outside of the cities to the countryside, where they could escape the guild's strict rules and employ cheaper labor. This putting out system was a major blow to the guild's control over manufacturing. Furthermore, the rise of powerful national monarchies began to erode the local political power that guilds had enjoyed for centuries. Kings and central governments started to regulate trade on a national level, making the city-based guild system seem outdated. By the 18th and 19th centuries, with the full swing of the Industrial Revolution, the guild system was all but gone, replaced by factories and a new way of organizing labor. But their legacy is undeniable. The guilds were the training grounds for generations of skilled artisans whose work we still admire today in cathedrals, museums, and historic city centers. They created a standard of quality and professional pride that is a distant ancestor of modern concepts like certifications and professional associations. They were a uniquely medieval solution to the challenges of building a stable urban economy and a cohesive society. They shaped the medieval city, not just its economy, but its politics, its social structure, and its very skyline. So the next time you admire a piece of intricate medieval craftsmanship, remember the guild system that made it possible, the long years of the apprentice, the travels of the journeyman, and the proud mastery of the craftsman who finally earned his place in the brotherhood. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the world of guilds interesting, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the past. We'll see you in the next one.